Welcome back to my channel.
I never planned on falling for the man next door. When you're 19, you're supposed to be figuring out college majors, pretending you know how to adult, and awkward talking your way through people your own age. You aren't supposed to lose your breath over a 34-year-old architect who spends his Saturday mornings drinking black coffee on his porch, looking like a page torn out of a book you're not mature enough to read yet. His name is Julian. I'm Leo. If you met me, you'd probably notice two things right away. I don't talk very loud, and I tend to look at my shoes when I'm nervous. I've always been the quiet one, the boy who blends into the wallpaper. Julian, though, doesn't blend. He moves through the world with this calm, grounded certainty that I envied from the moment my mom and I moved into the townhouse beside his. It started with a broken lawnmower. Typical, right? I was sweating, violently pulling the starter cord on our ancient mower, getting absolutely nowhere. I must have looked pathetic because I heard a low, amused voice over the cedar fence. "You're going to flood the engine if you keep pulling it like that." I froze, looking up. Julian was leaning against the wood, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms dusted with dark hair and a few faint paint smudges. My throat went completely dry. I don't really know how it works," I managed to mumble, heat rushing straight to my ears. He smiled. It wasn't a condescending smile. It was warm, crinkling the corners of his hazel eyes. "Let me look." He walked around the fence, took the cord from my hands, his fingers brushed mine, and a sudden sharp jolt went up my spine and fixed it in under 2 minutes. After that, I became a man possessed. I suddenly volunteered for every outdoor chore. I watered the plants 3 times a day. I swept the porch until the concrete practically shined. All just to catch a glimpse of him. When he did see me, he'd wave or ask how my classes were going. Every small interaction felt like a prize I kept in my pocket, turning it over and over in my mind before I went to sleep. The real shift happened on a rainy Tuesday in October. I was coming home from the library, soaking wet because I'd forgotten my umbrella. As I fumbled with my house keys, my hands shaking from the chill, Julian's front door opened. "Leo, you look like a drowned rat. Come inside for a second. Get dry." I didn't even hesitate. I stepped into his world. His place smelled like cedar, old paper, and something distinctly him, clean and warm. He handed me a massive, oversized gray hoodie and a towel, then disappeared into the kitchen to make tea. When I came out of the bathroom, wearing his clothes that practically swallowed me whole, he looked at me. Really looked at me. His eyes softened, tracking the way the sleeves hung over my hands. "Better?" he asked, handing me a mug. "Much better. Thank you, Julian." We sat on his sofa, and for the first time, my shyness melted. Maybe it was the warmth of the tea, or the storm rattling the windows, but we talked for 3 hours. I told him about my art history classes, my fears of not being good enough, and how loud the world felt to me sometimes. He listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't patronize me. He told me about his designs, his love for brutalist architecture, and how he preferred the quiet, too. When I looked at his lips while he was speaking, a sudden wave of bravery, completely foreign to my nature, washed over me. "Julian?" I interrupted softly. "Yeah? Do you think I'm just a kid?" He paused, setting his mug down slowly. The air between us grew thick, heavy with things we hadn't said. "No, Leo, I think you're incredibly smart and mature, but I also know you're 19 and I'm 34. Does that matter?" My voice was barely a whisper, but it filled the room. Julian looked down at his hands, sighing deeply. It should matter. The world thinks it matters. That was the first low point. He didn't push me away, but he built a wall. For the next 3 weeks, he was polite but distant. A quick wave, a hurried hello, but no more long talks. It broke my heart, honestly. I felt rejected, embarrassed that I had let my feelings show. But I'm stubborn in my own quiet way. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I used what I knew. I drew him. I spent a week sketching his profile from memory. The sharp line of his jaw, the gentle curve of his mouth when he was thinking. I put it in a plain brown envelope and slid it under his door with a note. Age doesn't change how we see the world. I see you. Please don't hide. The next night, there was a knock on my door. It was late. My mom was asleep upstairs. I opened it, and Julian was standing there, holding the sketch. His hair was messy, his breathing a little shallow. "Leo," he said, his voice rough. "You're ruining my peace of mind." "Good," I whispered, stepping closer to him on the porch. He groaned, a low, defeated sound, and then his hands were in my hair. He pulled me to him and kissed me. It wasn't gentle at first. It was desperate, full of all the restraint he'd been forcing himself to keep. His lips were warm, tasting faintly of mint, and when I wrapped my arms around his neck, he molded me against his chest. I felt tiny compared to him, but completely safe, completely powerful. When he pulled back, resting his forehead against mine, he sighed. "This is crazy. People are going to talk." "Let them," I said, burying my face in his neck. And people did talk. That was our next hurdle. The first blow came from my own mother. She found out a month later when she saw Julian kissing my cheek by the side gate. The argument was awful. She screamed that he was a predator, that he was taking advantage of my innocence, that a man his age had no business with a boy who still had a curfew. Julian stood there and took it. He didn't yell back. He just looked at her with his profound sadness and said, "I love your son, Elena. I would never hurt him." My friends at college weren't much better. They made jokes. They called him my daddy, laughed about his midlife crisis, and asked if he paid for my textbooks. It hurt. It made me feel dirty, like something beautiful was being dragged through the mud. There was a night when the weight of it all crushed us. Julian sat at his kitchen table, his head in his hands. "Maybe your mom is right, Leo," he muttered, looking exhausted. "I'm holding you back. You should be out partying, meeting people your own age, making mistakes, not dealing with a cynical old architect and neighborhood gossip." I walked over to him, pulled his hands away from his face, and forced him to look at me. I didn't speak softly this time. "Look at me, Julian," I said, my voice steady and firm. "Did I look like I was thriving before you? I was invisible. You didn't steal my youth. You gave me a place to grow. If you give up on us because of what people whisper over their fences, then you're the coward they think you are." He stared at me, shocked by my sudden, fierce streak. Then, a slow, breathtaking smile spread across his face. He pulled me down onto his lap, wrapping his strong arms tightly around my waist. "You're not as soft as you look, are you, Leo?" "Only for you," I smiled, leaning in to kiss him. We fought for us. Slowly, the world around us adjusted because we refused to blink. I stood up to my mother, telling her that if she couldn't respect my choice, she would lose me. Seeing my determination, she eventually agreed to have dinner with Julian. It was tense, but by the end of the night, seeing how attentive he was to me, how he remembered exactly how I liked my tea, how he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Her shoulders dropped. She saw it wasn't a game. It's been a year now. I'm 20 and he's 35. Sometimes the gap still shows. He has a mortgage. I have finals. He gets back pain if he sleeps wrong. I can survive on 4 hours of sleep and an energy drink. But when the house goes quiet and we're lying in his bed, the numbers don't exist. There's just the sound of his breathing, the warmth of his skin against mine, and the steady, unbreakable rhythm of our hearts. We built our own bridge across the years, and honestly, the view from up here is perfect. I'd love to know what you think of our story. Does the dynamic between Leo and Julian feel right to you? Or would you like to explore a different perspective on how their relationship evolved?
That was all for today. If you have any idea or like fantasy to hear a story on, comment below. I will try to write a story on it. Also write what type you want. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Bye.